decide whether or not to acknowledge that that's a human being during that 20 weeks of life. We don't have any problem discussing the rights of the mothers or the parent in terms of notification, and we talk about the rights of young people to get married. In none of those discussions is there any talk about that maybe they could be killed, because that's ludicrous. But in this discussion, with these human beings between conception and 20 weeks, what we're trying to do is not call them persons, because if you call them persons, they have rights. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this legislation doesn't talk about individual forms of conception. This legislation would say you were a person, and then by virtue of being a person, the concern is there are things that you couldn't do to that person. So we're worried about the rights of the mother to do these things to this person in this 20-week period of time. I want to know what the justification is. There are a lot of bad situations that people find themselves in, and I've never been a 14-year-old girl scared and pregnant and in that situation, and that's horrible. And people who respect life at all stages. So I have just as much compassion for that pregnant woman as I do for that unborn child, but they are both human beings, and we can debate that. I know there's a difference of opinion about that, but DNA is formed at conception. And if you go to a crime scene and there's 2 pieces of DNA on a crime weapon, then 2 people touched it. Not 1, 2. I'd also like to point out, I don't think this bill restricts rights. I think this bill acknowledges the rights of a human being. And so I don't think this bill is restrictive. A lot of talk about what it's going to restrict. In my view, it acknowledges the rights of human beings, and if that in and of itself is restrictive, then so be it. So, thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Are there questions for this witness? Seeing none, please fill out a witness form. Those that would like for their presence here and their position on this to be recorded. Have we not done 3?
So you did 3 before.
Oh
I'd be last.
gosh,
I'll be short.
I do apologize.
Okay.
I truly do.
We're all getting tired.
Please come forward. Thanks for keeping me on track.
Oh, no problem.
I had some little marks down on my paper and I just didn't look at them.
It's getting late, and I'm sure people want to leave to celebrate Valentine's Day. So, my name is Sarah Baker. I'm here with the American Civil Liberties Union as their policy director. I will be brief. One is Justice Blackmun was quoted earlier in a way that I think was a little bit misconstrued. So when Justice Blackmun was writing on Roe v. Wade, what he actually said was, all this together with our observation that throughout the major portion of the 19th century, prevailing legal abortion practices were far freer than they are today, persuades us that the word person, as used in the 14th Amendment, does not include the unborn. The Supreme Court has already ruled on where it feels the definition of personhood begins. If we were to put this in place in Missouri, you can bet right away there would be a constitutional problem and conflict with what the state of Missouri is doing in deference to the federal law, which by the Supremacy Clause is the law for our entire country. There are also unintended consequences, as others have pointed out. I wanted to highlight 2. One is that personhood measures would make some commonly used forms of birth control methods not usable in the future. I realize that people on this committee have used birth control in their own family to better judge when they are going to have children and to prevent unintended pregnancies. I'm sure you've also encountered the instance where some birth control may work for one woman and may not work for another. Some women seek an IUD, some women go with the pill. Those choices and that range of reproductive care is essential to making sure that women have access to safe health care. It's a full part of comprehensive health care. I also want to bring up that personhood measures would make illegal a physician's ability to provide medically appropriate care to a woman experiencing a life-threatening condition with a tubal pregnancy. So as you know, an egg can fertilize and be where it's supposed to be, or at times it can fertilize and actually be outside of that. In that case, it's life-threatening to the woman and has to be removed. And then some others have brought up the situation with IVF. And when we heard this last year in committee, I think these were also highlighted for you, but I wanted to draw you back to that because if the intent of the legislature is to better protect life, then I think we should protect the rights of individuals to better plan their families and have healthy families, and we should protect those who seek to have children in the future. So this comes from Carla Holster, who is a family practitioner with Carson Coyle Law Firm in the state of Missouri. She says IVF clinics will have to determine their liability should something happen to one of those embryos, even accidentally. The bill says life. What would they be charged with? Manslaughter. It opens up a lot of liability. You now have a potential level of liability that you did not have before. And Mary Black, a specialist in assisted reproductive therapy with the University of Missouri, said the high cost of keeping embryos in frozen limbo could cause IVF facilities to cease their businesses. Is $2,000 for one vial of embryos per year. One clinic questioned about the issue has 7,000 embryos frozen. So if one clinic suddenly finds itself required to keep those embryos frozen in perpetuity, it would go out of business. It would have to. And with that, I conclude my testimony.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Please leave a witness form. Again, we welcome all your witness forms, either in support or opposition. I would go now to, is there anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? All right. Representative Moon, do you have some closing comments?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to point out that the Journal of Human Reproduction indicated that at the time that a sperm meets an ovum, at that exact moment, a new DNA strand is created. And I won't go into detail, but hopefully there'll be some discussion later amongst ourselves. It would be, I think, beneficial. Personhood efforts, I mentioned, have failed in other states. And using this logic, we as a nation should have vacated our efforts to put a man on the moon, pun intended. Missouri is a show me state, and the General Assembly recognized that life began at the conception back in 1986, and we must not stop due to the failures or successes of other states. This bill does nothing to control, to address birth control restrictions. Future legislatures have every opportunity to amend or enact new legislation that will deal with that. I am certainly grateful to you, Madam Chairman, for, I was hesitant about tonight because it was a week earlier than we had anticipated. You mentioned to me this morning that you wanted to keep the bill moving, and I'm grateful for that. And so in keeping with that sentiment, I urge you and expect no less than to have an executive committee vote on this bill 1 week from today. Thank you again, committee, for your indulgence in, Madam Chairman.
You're very welcome. I want to thank everyone who's traveled here on this. Life is very important to us in this committee. Appreciate your attendance. That concludes the hearing on House Joint Resolution number 18. Everyone's free to go.